Welcome to Women Disrupting, a podcast amplifying the voice of women who are disrupting the status quo to create a more equitable, united, and peaceful world. I am delighted to have Laura Mcdermott on today's Women Disrupting podcast. Laura is a women's fitness coach. Through her work coaching women, Laura helps them disrupt unhealthy fitness norms so we can lead more healthy and empowered lives. Laura encourages her clients to prioritize getting stronger over hours of endless cardio. She encourages her clients to eat to be strong and lift weights for better well-being, both physically and mentally. In today's episode, we discuss shifting mindsets for women in the fitness world, how to make fitness work for women at different stages of their lives, and her fantastic recent achievements in Olympic weightlifting. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hi Laura, welcome to our episode of Women Disrupting. I'm so excited to have you. Just give us a bit of an overview before we delve into your work in a bit more depth as to what your role is in the fitness world and how you support women.
So I am a female fitness coach and I support women at all stages of life, really. I'm qualified in pre and postnatal as well. So ladies can come to me at any point with any goals and we work through them to achieve them.
And tell me a little bit about what led you up to this point to focus, first of all, on just women and in the fitness arena, because we were just talking then and you've actually got another job, a full-time job in commercial banking, but your heart must lie in the fitness world for you to come back after a full day's work and then put your gym kit on and start another job, which you've said is more like a hobby. So what's the motivation there?
So I think I've always been into sport. Throughout school, I was on all the teams, you name it, I did it. So I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something within sport, but not quite sure what. I went into further education, doing an A-level and a pre-services course, and kind of I was wanting to go down the army route and go into services, but that didn't quite pan out. I think at that age, I was quite keen to grow up and get a job, and I suppose I didn't really do anything with that. I took up pole fitness. That was the first sport and kind of activity that I was involved in post-school, and I started teaching my own classes at a local gym. So this would have been back in 2014 now. And that was my first exposure to a gym environment. I'd never stepped foot in a gym before. It's where I first started to lift weights. And I suppose back then was pretty uncommon for females to be doing that sort of thing. I then kind of did a bit more research and looking down, again, just lifting weights. And what kept cropping up at that point was bodybuilding. And I love a challenge. So in 2015, I competed. So I did bodybuilding back in 2015. But along with that, I developed some very unhealthy relationships with food, with my appearance, how I looked, and just with exercise in general. And post competing in 2015, I didn't really want to do anything. I kind of had this end goal of competing and that was it. I think that I'd been so restrictive with everything. I didn't want to do anything after that. And then in 2017, I came across a sport called CrossFit. So CrossFit is kind of a sport that combines a lot of different components in one. It's very performance driven. We were chatting about this before as well. So very performance driven. And it's the first sport, I suppose, that I saw females looking a certain way. They were quite muscular, I suppose, as far as females go and what the female norm was. And that was quite relatable to me because I knew that I always looked quite different to normal women, if you like, because I knew that I carried high muscle mass. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. It looks fun. And it's at that point my focus changed completely. My mindset shifted from aesthetics to performance. I developed skills and strength that I never thought that, was even possible. And it helped massively with the social side of life. Again, I suppose back to bodybuilding and the competing, you're very restrictive. You don't have any sort of social life. You don't really enjoy life, which is quite sad. So yeah, CrossFit is where it kind of all started for me. I had the opportunity to do my personal training qualification in lockdown. So I was still working full time at that point as well. And in the type of work that I did, business and commercial lending, we were like inundated with work. So I was literally working 24/7, obviously not going out and spending any money because we wasn't able to. So I did my PT qualification and never really, I suppose, planned to use it. It was just a bit of backup because I was thinking, I don't really have anything else to do, and what's going to happen to the corporate world. And it was at that point as well, the gym that I was at, there was 5 ladies at one point pregnant, and they all started to have the babies. Even when they was pregnant, there was then questioning, what should I be doing? There's not really much guidance out there for ladies. So straight away after my PT qualification, I did my pre and postnatal course the same year. So that would have been 2020 now. Yeah, 2020. And it kind of all grew from there. Like I said, I never really planned to use my qualification, but people were coming to me for help and advice and wanting support with goals and wanting to be trained. And yeah, it kind of all, developed from there, I suppose. I then moved to a ladies only gym back in 22 because I knew that then my focus was ladies. I wanted to support more ladies, and that's where I've been ever since. And hopefully now changing more mindsets and changing more perceptions around going to a gym for a woman and lifting weights and eating to perform, and just taking part in local competitions, which we've started to host ourselves now, which is great. And yeah, it's just nice to see the ladies change that mindset.
And you talk about that mindset a few times there. So just talk to me about what is the old mindset that's no longer serving women that we're still seeing, let's face it, in the gyms today and in kind of women's approach to fitness, and what's the new mindset that you think is more empowering for women that you're trying to promote?
So I think historically and still for a lot of women is around weight loss and looking at, certain trends that they might be seeing out there on social media. And usually when a lady wants to change something, they want to lose weight, so someone will come to me and say, I want to lose weight, I want to tone up. And that tone up phrase is used quite a lot. And what that means is actually, if you want to tone up, you want to drop some body fat, but you want to increase muscle tone, you want to build muscle, or you need to build muscle. And that can't happen without lifting weights or having the correct nutrition, protein, carbohydrates. So yeah, there's still far too much focus, I think, on weight loss and scale weight. And yeah, women tend to opt for cardio over lifting weights.
So with your clients, is it common practice or not to track the scales? Is it down to the client? Because it can be quite triggering for some people, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it totally does depend on the person. Now, weight loss, as in scale loss, using the scales is a tool to use and can be a good tool to use, but it is only one tool. So what I do tend to track with my ladies is more measurements, pictures, how they're feeling, how they're performing. So for someone who does want to lose weight, yes, we do still track scale weight, but it depends on, I suppose, like you say, is that triggering for a lady? Because it can be massively. And if that is the case, then it's something we don't do. Because this is something that I try to promote massively and try to get my ladies to understand quite quickly, is when you're enjoying doing what you're doing from a performance point of view, everything's linked in. Like you perform well because you're eating well, you need to eat well to perform well. You're then sleeping well and therefore recovering, and it is all linked. So without even thinking as aesthetics, those changes come, and ladies then see that they look differently just from focusing on performance. So an example that I've got of a lady who's been with me literally just 8 weeks. So yeah, the example that I'll use is a lady that I've got who's been working with me 8 weeks now, and she's seen more change in her physical appearance and her aesthetics than what she ever did in 2 years doing more cardio-based activity.
And was she one of the ones who came to see you and asked to get more toned up?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm curious then, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but saying I want to be more toned and or I want to build more muscle mass is the same thing, is it?
Pretty much, yeah. So I think when a lady's referring to someone to wanting to look toned, they want to kind of look, let's say, I don't know, they want to look a little more shapely, like they want to see a bit of muscle definition.
Yes.
And you can only see that muscle definition through having muscle and therefore building muscle and dropping some body fat.
So what do you think stops a woman coming to you and saying, Laura, I want to build more muscle mass in the next 12 weeks with you?
Because I think that phrase alone to a lot of women sounds scary. You know, when a woman thinks of lifting weights, especially heavy weights, they think that they're just gonna wake up the next morning and look like a man. You know, that's the reality, that they're scared of looking manly and muscular when that's not physically possible from a female perspective. Like, even though I've mentioned that I carry more muscle mass, like I just through having tests done, and this is the only reason that I know this, that my testosterone levels for a female are on the higher end. They're still technically within range, but they're on the higher end. So for a female to build muscle and to look manly, let's say, through lifting weights, they would have to be taking steroids and therefore putting that testosterone into their bodies.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that building muscle is synonymous with manliness, isn't it? But how do we get, and it's not exclusive to men though, is it? Like muscle building. Women, as we've proven in the industry, can do it and look great. So how do we shift that mindset so that more women embrace and understand that?
I think for a lot of women, it's just, I think, giving it a go, like just actually seeing for yourself that, you know, how much of a benefit lifting weights can be to not only the physical appearance, but also how they're feeling. So I just think a lot of women are scared to even try and to even give it a go or know what to do. That's probably one of the key factors for a lot of women, knowing what to do. Because I think, you know, if anyone was to join a gym, if a lady was to join a gym, especially a commercial gym where there's men in there lifting weights, I suppose that's what you associate with lifting weights, isn't it? Then a man that's lifting weights and looking muscular, it kind of scares them away from that area. But I think if you was to join, say, a community or a ladies' gym where we're still lifting weights, but, you know, we're a group of women that are looking great because of that, it will help with that mindset.
Yeah, definitely. What do you see in the women-only gym that you work in that's different to a mixed-sex gym?
So I think generally women are just more confident in they know of each other. You know, we've got a great group of ladies that all know each other, that are all, you know, friendly. Whereas if you was to walk in a commercial gym or a mixed sex gym, not that guys are not friendly, but again, it's that confidence to go in there, know what you're doing, and not feel that you're looking silly. You know, if you're doing something incorrectly, or if someone's going to be judging how you're lifting away or how you're feeling. And I suppose they all go to that ladies' gym for a reason, you know, and they've all been in the same boat at some point of not knowing what to do, and everyone's just so encouraging.
So it makes it more sustainable, and I guess the more sustainable it is, because it's less intimidating, you want to go back, the more results they see. And I guess on that note, just highlight to me then, we've talked about the aesthetic benefits that building muscle can lead to or getting toned, but like on sort of a long-term scale, thinking about pregnancy and menopause and perimenopause and getting older, what are some of the benefits of building muscle mass for women at different stages of their lives?
So I would definitely the getting older. I'll touch upon that first, because I think that's that's one thing that we probably don't think of, where like for women in their 20s and 30s, who wants to think about being 60, 70, plus. But by building muscle, getting your bones stronger, your muscles stronger, your joints stronger, as you get older, naturally that muscle mass decreases. That's a fact. We're prone to then trips and falls, and on the back of that, serious injury, breaks, then leading to potential operations and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, just helping with mobility first of all, and the less risk of the injury of getting older and having less bone density and less muscle mass. So yeah, you're improving your quality of life just from starting lifting weights and prolonging your life even. That's just one thing that I don't think we do think about, that a lot of people should be thinking about, and that's the reason they should be lifting weights. I think from kind of a pre and postnatal point of view, again, historically, ladies are very scared to do much exercise, or to know what exercise they could be doing or could be doing, but maybe avoiding certain movements. It's just having that knowledge of, what to do and what not to do. But in terms of supporting your pregnancy, and I suppose postpartum, with pregnancy, first of all, you're more, I suppose, from your body's changing, and you can't get away from that. So you're obviously gonna be feeling a certain way about your body. Whereas, if you're in a gym, you're still moving, mentally, you're feeling good, and that you're putting yourself in the best possible position for recovery postpartum, and therefore postpartum recovery is proven to be, what's the word I'm trying to think of, obviously this is not the case for all ladies that lift weights that are pregnant, and it's there's no studies out there that show it helps with labor. Some people will argue that, but there's that's not the case. But in terms of recovery in general, you're not likely to have put on as much weight. We have this whole eating for two, I think, mindset with a lot of women when they are pregnant. So they will naturally put more weight on. And yeah, you're just more likely to get back to pre-pregnancy sort of overall weight and condition if you're more likely to, well, if you do train for pregnancy.
And you've seen this through the clients that you coach, I take it? Because one of the interesting things you mentioned then was there's no data or research, and that's the problem for women's health, I think, is a lot of the studies that are carried out are on males or male researchers and scientists, etc. And there's a big data gap for women. So fitness coaches like yourself have to rely very much on, would you say, anecdotes and what you experience and see with your own clients, or do you have a pool of, or do you have like a science resource or a research source that you tap into for that?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. There has, of course, the studies that have been done, but I suppose each woman is individual. Every pregnancy is different for a woman, and what one lady can do throughout pregnancy doesn't mean every woman can do it throughout pregnancy. It all depends on how that person is feeling. And what, there's a couple of ladies at the gym currently, and one of them is struggling with pelvic pain. Like pelvic girdle pain is quite a common thing to have throughout pregnancy, just because of obviously your body's adjusting, and there's the next lady's not getting any signs of that. So what you then need to change and do differently for different women is very much individual.
And what about the menstrual cycle as well? Because that impacts your relationship with fitness and your approach to fitness, doesn't it? Do you do you sort of use that to inform your training plans with women? Because I know that some women find it really difficult at the premenstrual stage of the month. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, this is very individual, and I'm just going purely off my own experience with this, but definitely with ladies. So I think it's just understanding at certain times of your cycle, you will naturally feel like you're stronger and that you're more capable and you can push a little more and feel good for that. And there's at certain parts of your cycle, like you're saying, kind of the second half where you're running up to the end and your energy levels are low, you're wanting to just take it a little easier and your body needs that. It's just, again, very individual. How are you feeling at that point? And not every cycle is the same. Like I can go month to month with not necessarily having any symptoms and feeling that from a lifting perspective that I can pretty much perform the same throughout. And then it gets to the time of when I start day one and I come on my period and I'm like, oh well, I felt like I didn't want to cry when I dropped a pen last week, or I was able to go to the gym and feel good. And then there's been of course there's been times where I have struggled and I've had to kind of cut down on the weight that I'm lifting or the intensity that I'm working out. And it's just about understanding that, I suppose, for women. So of course it's a conversation that I have. And if, anyone says to me, oh, I'm not feeling great today, I'm like, right, where are you in your cycle? And the amount of women that don't, first of all, there's some women that actually don't really know, they don't really know where they are or what that means for them and what it means from a training point of view. But understanding, again, there's nowhere near enough education and things out there for women to have that understanding that, right, this is the reason that I'm feeling a bit rubbish today. I'm not feeling strong. I'm not feeling like I'm in the mood even to go and do anything. So yeah, definitely if we're looking at certain parts of a program and a lady's wanting to, I don't know, if we're testing kind of PBs, we will always try and do that at a time in the cycle that would be better to do that. So it's definitely education, but individual as to how they feel at that point.
Yeah, definitely. No, but that's really great to know that you use that information because it is so important, not just in the fitness world, but in your day-to-day job as well. Like you probably do perform better. I know I am more productive at the start of my cycle in my day-to-day job. I get way more done and less done at the end. So it's great that you're using that as a tool. I wonder, before we wrap up, if we could just talk Olympic weightlifting a little bit, because this is something I know that you're interested in. And we were just talking about the Olympics, how exciting it is watching all these inspirational athletes. But Olympic weightlifting traditionally is seen as a male sport. We know it's not now because we see all these wonderful female role models lifting weights that some men couldn't. Well, we know most men couldn't lift at Olympic weightlifting standard. But for the listeners, could you just give us an explanation as to what is Olympic weightlifting and how is it similar or dissimilar to the kind of weightlifting that you do with your clients?
Yeah, of course. So Olympic weightlifting. So this is using a barbell predominantly, especially when you're doing the lifts themselves. And we have two lifts in Olympic lifting. We have the clean and jerk and the snatch. I'm not going to attempt to do those movements. I'll let you look those up. And I suppose from entering a competition, the weight that you lift is a combined maximum weight across the two lifts. So you will get 3 attempts and it's the heaviest weight, those two combined, that then give you an overall score. So mainly using a barbell is the difference. There's a lot of accessory work and stuff to do around that where you're not necessarily using a barbell, but it is mainly barbell work.
And if you were to incorporate it into a training plan, what would the rationale be behind that?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is where then the performance side of exercise and training comes in. Like I've been Olympic lifting now, like as an exercise on its own for this year, the start of this year. I've always done it throughout CrossFit. And I suppose the benefit of doing that individually or on its own is that you can just put more of a focus into that. There's a lot of, within exercise in general, there's a lot of different types of stuff that you could concentrate on. And I suppose you've got to enjoy it. You know, the reason that I've chosen to do it full time is because I enjoy it. You know, I feel that I'm half decent at it because I'm stronger. I'm naturally stronger because of that muscle mass that we've spoken about. And I just love trying to push that weight on the bar. You know, it's got nothing to do with how I'm looking. You know, I'm not conscious about aesthetically how I'm looking, but I don't need to be because I'm performing well. I'm pushing myself because I enjoy the sport and I'm fueling well to perform well.
So I'm intrigued because you said that you do in Olympic weightlifting full time. Is that all you do? What does your training plan look like for someone who is like a fitness role model like yourself?
Yeah, so that is what I do full time pretty much now. I do the odd kind of CrossFit style workout, which is a bit of everything, mainly from the fitness side, because I feel like not that doing Olympic lifting doesn't get me, you know, out of breath and, you know, I'm not sweating my head off from doing it, but I just like that bit of movement using machines or using dumbbells or just a variety of equipment. But yeah, so my training at the minute is 4 days a week doing Olympic lifting with a view to enter the British Championships this December.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. Wow.
Yeah. It's the English Championship. Sorry, not the British. They've just had the British, but yeah, the English Championships.
So when's that? September?
December.
So what's I guess the path to that? Is there like qualifiers? Is it a really strict regime you've got to follow? Do you have a coach? Lots of questions there for you, Laura.
Yeah, so I do have a coach who I believe you may be interviewing.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a coach and yeah, so there is qualifiers. I only did my first competition in, was it April, I think, this year? And with that total of competition, that's allowed me to qualify. So I can enter now the English Championships, which will be running in December. Yeah, so I'll be hopefully competing with the best in England. There's a lot of different categories as well. So because of my age, I'm technically masters, and there's within those categories then different weight categories. So that's how it's kind of made fair for women that, you know, there's lifters under 60 kg and there's lifters, you know, there's no end on the weight of lifters. So from a strength point of view, that's how it's made fair within competition, that it goes off.
And do you think getting to, you know, this kind of competitive level that you're aiming towards now, which is amazing, and you've talked about like your natural predisposition to be more to have more muscle mass, do you think it does rely on genetics? Obviously you've got to put in the work, but do you think that you've got to have that kind of genetic makeup to make it?
I think that genetics is probably something that I can have a whole load conversation on. I think genetics plays a massive part on how you look. You know, you can, a lot of these trends that I put out there around, you know, like that's just not possible if you genetically don't have the ability to build that muscle in that area or already have muscle in that area. So genetics massively plays a massive part of that. I think in terms of performance, yes, but I do also believe that you can definitely train and work, you know, just as hard to get to that level without those genetics. I think that I'm just very lucky in naturally being strong and holding more muscle mass that, you know, I've been able to kind of do so well in the time that I've been doing it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a hope for us all. It's so inspiring. I'm so excited for you. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, good. I've mentioned my coach Erin,
Yeah.
who's supportive, and she's definitely an inspiration, even more so for Olympic lifting and women wanting to get into sport. And hopefully she'll talk a little more about that. But yeah, I'm also very excited, and I just hope that I'm actually had an injury recently, so I'm just hoping that nothing kind of hinders my progress.
Um, you're really positive and optimistic about what you do and lifting, but I'm curious, have you had any pushback?
So personally for myself, just going back to, I've had this scenario crop up in kind of both sports that I did. So going back to the bodybuilding, I was absolutely clueless doing that. I got myself a coach, but just did what I was told to do. I suppose I was told to do this training regime, to eat this food, like it was very regimented, and like I said, I had no clue what I was doing. And I actually got a first and a second place in doing bodybuilding. And so I was asked if I was on any sort of substance back then. Steroids, really, because of how I looked and for how short that I'd been doing the sport.
Yeah,
And I suppose since going into, and the mindset then, like as I said, I was absolutely traumatized, like how someone could think that, like I would be absolutely clueless on where to start with those sorts of things. But then going into performance, I have been asked the same question. So it's always, again, it kind of links back to, I think, how I look, and not being the norm, which has just made me more determined to show that it is, it's okay and it is normal for women to look a certain way, to have a little more muscle and to look strong and to perform well. And I think that's probably one of the factors of me wanting to support women and help them also with performance.
definitely. Trying to normalize a certain way of looking that sort of goes against what was promoted in the 80s, the 90s, the early noughties, which was just to be at a smaller number on that scale as possible, which was impossible. And it's a more healthy message that you're trying to promote. If someone is thinking, I haven't been in the gym ever or for a while, and I'm actually curious about weightlifting now, what's the best piece of advice you could give them?
So definitely just have a look at what's around in your local area, because believe it or not, like you might not think there's much out there, but there will be. So, the internet's a great place these days for promoting and finding such things. So just have a look at what may be in your local area. And more importantly, just enjoy whatever it is you want to do, whether that is going to a gym and lifting a variety of weights, or whether it is doing a class, or whatever it is you choose to do, just make sure it's something you enjoy, because it'll be a lot more sustainable. You'll enjoy it. You'll want to go back. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out direct for any questions, I'm more than happy to help people and to have a look for them.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and the best of luck with the upcoming competition in December.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. I'm always looking for disruptive women as guests. If you think you'd make a great guest or know anyone who would, then please email me with the details. You can email info@yasminarifcoaching.com. More details in today's show notes. Remember to show up and share your truth, because the world is hungry for women who show up and tell the truth, unafraid and free, expanding to the very edges of who they were always meant to be.